The December 2025 meeting for the Mendocino County Board of Retirement is called to order at 8:34. And so the first thing we'll do here is a roll call. Judy, please.
Mr. Kelly?
Here.
Ms. Cavanis?
Here.
Mr. Haschak?
Here.
Mr. Shoemaker?
Here.
Ms. Harris?
Here.
Mr. Swope?
Here.
Ms. Cubison is absent by prior arrangement, and Mr. Land.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, so now it's time for the Pledge of Allegiance. And Trustee Kelly, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Sure thing. With me, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, that brings us to our first item, election of Board of Retirement Officers and appointments to the Audit Committee for 2025-26. And I believe at this point we solicit nominations for the three different officer positions that we will be voting on. Are there any nominations?
For chair,
For chair?
I nominate Alex.
What a surprise.
Yeah.
And that will leave, I can say that obviously it's been telegraphed that I would probably be continuing this because I didn't see a lot of people volunteering for it. I have my schedule for this year, for my travel schedule. I will not be missing any meetings this year, and I never get sick. So because of that, the vice chair will probably almost certainly not have to actually chair a meeting. So are there any nominations for vice chair?
Are you trying to sell it?
I am. That is exactly what I'm doing. I'm saying how easy of a job it's going to be this year.
One cannot nominate oneself, can one?
No, but I can nominate Leonard Swope. Right? We did.
Ask counsel.
So, I mean, he's currently the vice chair, right? So the issue came up about having an alternate member be an official. And there's nothing in our rules or regulations that preclude it. There are some systems that do. There are some who suggest that perhaps it's not the best practice to do that. So there's no prohibition, but there's some thought that it may not be the best practice. Did you want to add to that?
Unless we, I think, update our board regulations or the charter to indicate that that's the policy of the board at this point, you're right. There's no prohibition against it in the law, and we don't have anything. But it is a topic that has come up with all the sterile systems. I think us and LA are the only two I know that actually have permitted it.
And we have a very recent precedent.
Yes, very.
Outstanding. So you are nominated currently. Do we need to vote on each one of these before?
I think you can vote the slate.
Vote the slate.
Again,
I
I'll
like
defer
vote
to
the slate.
counsel on that.
You could vote this way.
Okay, and that leaves the secretary.
The secretary has fewer duties than the vice chair, by the way.
I nominate Catherine.
Do you accept that nomination, Catherine?
I do.
Okay. That brings us to a vote on myself, Alex Land, as chair, Leonard Swope as vice chair, Catherine Cavanis as secretary. Judy, do we need to take a actual vote on this?
We do.
We do? All right, let's do so.
Do I have a motion to elect the slate of officers that's presented?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Cavanis?
Aye.
Mr. Haschak?
Aye.
Mr. Shoemaker?
Aye.
Ms. Harris?
Aye.
And Mr. Land?
Aye. All right. And I just want to make a statement really quick that this will be 2 years in a row, and I don't think it'll be healthy to do 3. So I'm really hoping somebody will decide that they would like to do this next year, but that is a year away. That brings us to the appointments to the Audit Committee, and I really liked the way the Audit Committee worked, with the exception of me being on it. And because of that, I am hoping, and I'm permitted to do the, to assign people to this. I'm going to keep the content of the group the same. Catherine, you'll be chairing that. Jerry, you're, Trustee Harris, you're okay with being on that again?
Yes,
Okay.
as long as it's not after a board meeting.
Okay. That,
Understood.
and I believe that we do have a calendar to work out today as well.
Yes.
And Lenord,
Yes.
and then the member who will be replacing me is Shamise Cubison, who is not here.
We'll
Therefore
let her
can't
know.
object. And I don't believe we need to have any kind of a vote on that. We have.
I don't believe so,
Yeah.
because you just get to appoint them.
Yes.
Right. Okay, that brings us to item number 2, adoption of the 2026 board meeting calendar. Doris Rentschler, Executive Director.
Thank you, Chair Land. A draft of the 2026 board calendar is provided in your packets. The board meetings are all on our standard third Wednesday of the month, with the exception of November, following our general practice of having it early to receive the report from the actuary, and that's going to fall on the first Wednesday of the month. Christmas doesn't look to be a concern. Our board meeting on the third Wednesday would be the 16th, more than a full week before the Christmas holiday, so we didn't feel any need to adjust the calendar in that regard. So we are looking for a motion to accept the board calendar as presented or as amended by the board.
So moved. Second?
Discussion. I have one discussion item. The November 4th meeting this year, we did that this year. We had an early meeting. But I don't believe that really served any advantage because the presentation wasn't made to the Board of Supervisors in November and has not been made yet.
Yeah, and it doesn't go to the board until the year following.
Okay,
The reason
we wanna get the numbers
reason
early.
we get it early is so we can finish our financials and give
Okay.
the auditor's office the information they need to complete their financials for the year.
Perfect.
If there's any additional information needed on that, Robert can chime in, but I believe I covered the reasoning.
Is there any further discussion on item 2, the board calendar? Then how about we go to, we had a motion and we have a second, so let's go ahead.
Scheduling audit committee.
Oh, do we need to
Yes,
do the audit
we-
committee now?
At the
Okay.
last audit committee meeting in November, they deferred scheduling the next audit committee meeting to be selected by this board since they didn't know who was going to be on the committee in 2026. 3 of the committee members are here, so I'm hoping that we can select a date for the first audit committee meeting in 2026. Do you think that would be April?
Either late April or May. I think May probably would be the safer bet, but the last potentially last 10 days of April would also work if that's better.
And that would be really just to receive the agreed upon procedures report from our internal audit activities auditor, GMO. This wouldn't be with our financial auditor.
It'd be a very short meeting, also probably 30 minutes, at absolute most 45-minute meeting.
So Catherine and Jerry and Lenord, if you have a preference of dates in that late April or early May timeframe, we're happy to schedule around whatever works for you.
But we don't want to have it on the same day as the regular.
Correct. We don't want to have it on Wednesday, the 21st, but anytime following that how about Wednesday, the 15th? I was looking at the wrong month. Anytime after that, towards the end of April or early May would be an advised date from Mr. Reveles.
Would April 22nd?
Yeah, I don't see any reason that would not work. April 22nd is acceptable. What time of day would you like that meeting?
1 in the afternoon?
April 22nd, 1 p.m. for the audit committee meeting. Thank you very much.
Okay, and
Yes,
Were you still doing the audit committee?
yes, we can do audit committee if,
No, I just meant, were you finished up there? There's one more item on the agenda, the calendar that I thought might be missing.
I think they were still going to take the vote. Is there something else on the item 2?
It's just that it looks like the second SACRS, the fall SACRS may not be on there unless I'm missing it. And I just wanted to bring the trustees' attention to it. We had great attendance at the last one. So the fall looks like it's on there for May, but I'm not seeing, I mean, the spring is there, but I'm not sure.
It actually is there on the 10th through the 13th, overlapping with the holiday of November 11th, which is Veterans Day.
It's not listed though.
Oh,
That's
it's not
on the list,
listed
it's
in
on
the
this.
text
Yeah.
below.
Right.
My apologies. We can add that to the list. It is shaded on the calendar, but it's not called out what
Right.
that shading is for that date. My apologies. Thank you for bringing that to my
Sure.
attention.
that's very convenient. I didn't notice the bust out of the conferences on the bottom.
I believe there was a motion, right?
Ms. Cavaness, are you okay with amending your motion
Sure.
to include those changes? And Ms. Harris, are you okay with the
Yeah,
second?
of course.
Thank you. Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Cavaness?
Aye.
Mr. Haschak?
Aye.
Mr. Shoemaker?
Aye.
Ms. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Land?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to the consent agenda. All matters on the consent agenda are to be approved by one action without discussion unless a board member requests separate action on a specific item. Do we have any requests? Seeing none, the consent calendar is adopted by unanimous consent, I believe is the phrase. And that brings us to number 4. Audit Committee report and recommendations to adopt the financial statements and independent audit reports for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025. Catherine Cavness, Audit Committee Chair.
Okay, so the audit report for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025, there were no findings. And we also had the next audit committee meeting will be scheduled when the full board adopts the 2026 meeting calendar. So, and we need a motion to recommending approval of the audit report for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025.
If there are any questions on the audit report, Robert and I are happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions or any discussion? Would somebody care to make a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Judy?
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Cavaness?
Aye.
Mr. Haschak?
Aye.
Mr. Shoemaker?
Aye.
Ms. Harris?
Aye.
And Mr. Land?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 5.
I have one more thing
Okay.
to say about this. The Director Rentschler announced that the agreed upon procedures AUP audit report regarding processing service retirement benefits and refunds for contributions had been received from Macias, Genie, and O'Connell, LLP, MGO, and no issues were found. MGO offered a few suggestions for improvement that were not significant enough to be included in the final report, which staff will implement going forward. Okay, that's the conclusion of our
Yes, thank you.
audit report.
Okay, are we ready to proceed to item 5? Review of Mixera's Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, ACFR, and Popular Annual Financial Report, which I cannot pronounce, and for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2025. Robert Ravelis, Retirement Financial Investment Officer.
Thank you, trustees. Doris, did you have any intro comments before we dive in very quickly and briefly?
I would like to thank Robert and all the effort from staff in putting together the annual comprehensive report. Once again, we have the certificate of achievement from the GFOA for last year's report, and they've received that every year that it's been submitted. Really, this is a comprehensive report that provides a lot of useful information to the system, and I truly appreciate their efforts in putting that forward. And the photographs.
It's suggesting no accidents or tie-ups to report, I guess?
Yes.
Well, you can, my question to trustees is actually, anybody recognize that photo?
It looks like just coming into Ukiah, but now I'm thinking, no, it's not. It's
You are correct.
That is correct.
Burke Hill?
It is Burke Hill Bridge right there coming into Ukiah.
Right,
So
I got a speeding ticket there one time.
a lot of people probably in the same
Long
situation as
time.
you. Yeah. So Judy's going to run this for us. We're going to briefly go through in an effort to try to help trustees get a sense for what they might think is important when you look at a report like this. It's a big report, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to read every single page. The memo lists some of the things we're going to briefly look at. And our hope is that as you look at this report and maybe past reports, and if you're really ambitious, other systems reports, that you'll get a sense for what you think is most important when you're reviewing a pension fund or a local government system.
Question. Since we have an accountant on board, will the accountant be doing this same role about a year from now?
Maybe, possibly. As trustees are aware, we do have a new retirement accountant. I have effectively offloaded all of the accounting duties to them, so that's a good thing for me. It's also a good thing for the system. So you'll see her name show up on some of the board reports as we get more comfortable and she gets more comfortable in her role. So maybe, I guess, is the answer to the question. Maybe, probably, just to be real clear there. Yeah. So let's go really quickly to page 30. This is our statement of net position. And I'm calling out the page numbers on the PDF as opposed to the page numbers within the document. So if you're using a PDF to follow along, you can type in the number. When I say 30, you can type that in. It should go right to the page. This is the basic statement of net position. This is all the assets that we have for the system, and it compares 2 years. It shows our investments, probably the primary thing that people would be looking at on this page, broke out by basic asset classes. We're relatively simple. We've only got these 5 real asset classes on this page. If you look at other systems, you're going to see they have a lot more, and they break those out in different ways. But here you can see the changes from fiscal year 24 to 25 in the 2 columns. Depending on what you think is most important, you know, as you look at these over time, you'll zero in on different parts of different line items that you think are important. On the next page here, we've got the statement of changes on page 31. Yep. The statement of changes to net position. This lists out all the categories of how the system changed year to year. And you know, the first page we looked at is important to know, but for me, I actually prefer to look at this page because this page shows us actually how things changed and what parts of the system changed. So in our instance, the very first line item, net realized and unrealized appreciation of fair value of investments, you can see that changed from 2447 million to 2570 million. That's a combination of all of our sales, our realized sales, and all of our market gains that were not cash flow related. So that just shows that we had a fairly sizable increase from year to year, which we know that. We had a great year, a 12.3% time-weighted return in fiscal year 25. Maybe a little less interesting dividend income, rental income, interest income. You can see that those items have changed a little bit year to year, 2 of them going up and interest income going down. Investment expenses, I also wanted to point out, that's often a line item that trustees are drawn to. And in this instance, we can see we've got a slight drop of about $200,000 from fiscal year 24 to 25. In fiscal year 25, as trustees recall, we changed our international portfolio structure, and that partially decreased the investment expenses that we report as a system. We got rid of some of those more expensive managers, and we went to a similar structure as the domestic equity, where we have one large index fund and then smaller active managers. So that reallocation within the international portfolio contributed to that investment fee line item being lower. The other large contributor to that number being lower was the updated accounting treatment of incentive fees within JP Morgan. So this is a little bit more technical, but we changed the accounting treatment slightly of those fees, and now our actual investment expense reflects more closely our true costs. As I laid out in a memo a few quarterly updates ago, previously with JP Morgan, we had overstated our dividend income from them and offset that overstatement with overstatement of investment fees. So I felt that was just a little confusing, and this treatment is more consistent and better reflects our actual costs and our actual dividend income received from the firm. In total, if you take that I'm jumping ahead. I'm sorry. So before I get deeper into investment fees, we're going to look at that in a minute. The other items of note here, of course, are the contributions, which are in the middle of the page. Employer and member contributions went up. As trustees are aware, the rates increased from the actuarial evaluation from 22 to 23. And that's reflected here as an increase in employer contributions. In addition to those rates going up a little bit, the payroll for all the members also increased. So not the number of employees, but the payroll of staff at the plan sponsors went up. That contributed partially to the increased values that we see here on this report. And the rates contributed by members also went up slightly. Any trustee questions or comments on any of the other items here?
Well, with the investment expenses, so it went down 1.9 million from the previous year, and the previous year of 24 had gone down 2.1 million from that prior year.
Well, the negative 2.1, that was the expense in fiscal year 24. So that's just the fees that we're paying, overall expense that we're paying. Now there is a little bit of nuance to the investment fees, and we're getting to that. We've got a table a little farther in the report that shows that. So this number here is the number that you would be able to find on our budget update reports. The real investment expense that we pay as a full system is not going to be reflected in that budget report. But this number is. So just to be confusing, hopefully I would try to clarify that as we get a little farther in the report. This number you see here slightly understates what our true investment costs are a little bit. And I'm going to get to that page where we're going to look at that in detail. Any other questions, comments here? If not, let's move forward to page 49 and 50. There's a lot of numbers on this page, but this is another one of my favorite pages. It shows a lot of information that is both actuarial and both financial. On the top portion of this page, we can see our total pension liability and the changes in year to year. This is information from our GAS 67 report. And this shows our interest and service costs over time, the benefit payments that we've made over time, and how the sum of all those differences have either contributed or taken away from our total pension liability. So in the example of 2025, the second column up at the top here, we've got interest and service costs at about $80 million. Service costs are the single year actuarial accrued expense to the system, 18.8 million. Interest is the interest on the plan. The benefits, the difference between expected and actuarial experience is a plug line kind of. Benefit payments line item is what we're actually paying out of the system, and that's going to tie to the pages we looked at on the other sheet on page 31. If you add those all together, we've got the net change, and we can see the bottom two lines here are net pension liability, $963.6 million at the start of the year, and $997 million at the end of the year. So our total net change was $33.5 million increase. At the bottom of this page, this is where we look at our fiduciary net position. And these changes here really mimic the changes on page 31 that we just looked at. And the reason why I like to look at this page in other system reports is because I don't need to go back and look at page 31 in their report. I don't have to flip around. You can just look at this one page and see trends within the system over the last 5 years. And on the second page here, page 50, the next page, you're going to look at the previous 5 years. So we have a 10-year look back at pension liability of the system and the fiduciary net position of the system. So I love looking at things like this to see what changes are being made within systems over time.
So the fiduciary net position as a percent of the total pension liability, that's very close essentially to the funded ratio of the plan on a market value basis instead of an actuarial basis.
That's a good point. Like I said, I mentioned that this information is from the 67 report, which the point of that report is to report our pension liability as a function of market values or fair values.
Robert, I'm glad you like numbers so much.
What's the next page we're hopping to?
On page 55, let's go to page 55. So this is our actual, quote unquote, actual investment management expense for the system. Now I say quote unquote because notice there's two columns here. There's a direct column and there's a fund level column, and the sum of the two, I should have caught and changed the title. Yeah, I can do that before we actually submit it. But the far column on the right is the sum of our direct and our indirect level returns, which are the two columns on the left.
So for the fiscal year as a whole, we're looking at 4.5 million in investment expense.
That's correct. So the total expense for the entire investment program is this $4.5 million that we see on the bottom right there.
So give a quick explanation between direct and fund, because some people may not know what that distinction is.
So the direct expense, that's the number from our budget report. Some of the investment fees that the system experiences, we don't directly have knowledge of or access to. In the case of a publicly traded mutual fund or our fixed income funds, we don't actually get statements that show individual transactions that happen within our investment account. We're part of a larger fund, and the fund is run at certain operating expenses. Each one's a little different. In the case of Dodging Cox, it's 42 basis points. In the case of PIMCO, it's 40 basis points. And the investment managers operate the fund, and every day they report the cost of the fund, something called net asset value. That's the stock price that you can go look up for an investment strategy. And every day that reported number has operating, trading, custodial, and management fees deducted from it. So when we report our investments at the year end for our actual net asset, our fair market value balances, those numbers for some of our investments already account for this second level, this middle column, fund level column of total $2.5 million.
So we're not being separately invoiced to pay the management fee on the S&P 500. It's being reported net asset value, net of fees. So that's why we have some that are paid directly and those that are net of fees as far as our investment fund that we're in, that get us to the total fees for the plan level.
That's correct.
We might want to call that plan level.
I see that we have some that are in both columns.
Yes. Yes, and some we do. So international equity funds, some of those funds we pay directly, like the new world index from SSGA, that's paid directly. So their total is in the direct fund. In the case of
The international equity index fund is in the
is
fund
also
level.
that's in the direct one. But at the start of the year, we didn't have that structure. At the start of the year, we had other managers that we didn't actually pay. They pulled money out of the net asset value of the fund. And so that would be somebody like the previous Oakmark manager, for instance, the CIT investment that we had. So that's the difference there. Some of the funds we were never invoiced for. They just expensed us through the daily course of their operations. Some of them, like Mondrian, we directly did pay, and they're included in that $700,000 line item on the International Equity Fund.
Because this isn't by manager, it's by asset type.
Yeah, they're all buried in there together.
What does the 4.5 million represent on a basis point total for our asset totals?
Yeah, so if you take the $4.5 million and you divide that by our in net asset value of the entire fund, $793 million, our net position from page 31 or 30, that number is going to be 57 basis points, 0.57%. And so that's now we all know, of course, staff knew that, but now you all know. You can go out, find this table in other systems and divide their reported number by their net position to figure out if we are higher or lower than these other funds. And of course, I already did that.
Yeah, begs the question.
Yeah, and of course, I already did that. And what I found when I looked at the California systems is that we are on the low side when you do that calculation. There was actually only one other system that was lower than us, and I don't necessarily know how they're reporting everything, but I will tell you that I was highly suspicious of that number.
Can you disclose which?
Yeah, sure. It was Merced. And so, doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means that I didn't understand that calculation. Didn't make a lot of sense to me. But those numbers varied everywhere from us being low at the 50, 60 basis points, right? Because every year that number is going to change. And the big change is really in the denominator, right? The investment fees are relatively stable, but the denominator, the net position, can move around a lot.
Sure, market drop, it would make
Yeah.
it look more expensive.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, yeah, but it would, but some of these fees are based on performance, so that
True.
would.
Some, so
True.
you might see
Right,
a little
it would
drop off
move.
in some of the
True.
fee, but
So in your deep dive in that, in 2022, when we were at negative 9.73 return, do you know what we look like in our expenses compared to?
We could figure that out if we take a short break. We can come back. It would be the same calculation. We could go on our website. We can look at the 22 report. I don't recall off the top of my head.
Let me rephrase the question. What do you think our typical range of adjustment in those costs are annually? Just your sense of that.
60, 65.
Yeah.
Yeah, last year we were at 60, I want to say 63.8. So that was last year. So we're varying somewhere in the low mid 60s. Today we're low at 57 or 56. And this actually doesn't include any of my salary. I think potentially going forward, that's something we might consider is expensing part of my salary against the investment performance. And that would be another 1 basis point, by the way, because we've kind of looked at that already.
The custodial bank, that's a flat fee?
That is not a flat fee. That is a fee based on our assets. So we pay 90 basis points based on our asset value per year. And we pay individual transaction fees. If we want to initiate a transaction fee, that's $8.50. If we want to do a wire, that's $8. So there's a few little, transaction fees that we pay in any given month. So no. And of course, that's the custodial bank fee that Trustee Swope is referencing, the line item, custodial bank fee, $75.9 thousand.
So with the chart below, which has the investment consultant, I assume that's Callan.
Yes.
Okay, so almost 200,000. So should that be included in the top part when you figure out the points that are being? That we're
It
actually
is.
paying?
Part of it is, so the investment consultant is included in that line there. So one's 195 and one down here is 198. They should be the same number. I appreciate you pointing that out. However, there are additional expenses related to the investment in the other investment expense. So you can see most of those numbers are the same. Actuarial expense at the bottom is $78,000. That's our valuation. That's also included as an investment expense up top. Audit services, that one is not included as an investment expense. That's an operational expense. The custodial services line item is the same. Consulting general actuary is not included up top. That's not an investment expense. So that table at the bottom is large consultant expenses, but they're not necessarily investment related. Yeah.
Yeah.
So at $3,000 difference in the two charts, is that a typo?
I'm not sure right now. I think it might be some travel expenses that I incurred, but I would double check that, which of course I'll double check that before we submit that to GFOA. Yeah.
The actuarial, that's a flat fee?
The valuation is a flat fee. Yes.
The gas reports are a flat fee, but we
Yes.
also hire them for hourly consulting, which is obviously not a flat fee. And so the secondary port of the audit or actuarial services, the top line is your valuation that you can charge off against investment expense as part of investment expense. The other portion, general consulting, are the gas reports and our hourly consulting.
Any other questions from trustees?
All right, we'll hit the last two real quick.
Page 84 is our actuarial analysis of financial experience. Some trustees may be interested in what changes in the UAL have looked like over time. And that's what this table is showing you. This shows beginning, each column shows the beginning UAL and the specific change that either contributed to it or took away from the UAAL balance. So in 2025, we start at 248,000. It's really million, right? 248 million. And we have an expected change of, we expected to lower that by $10.7 million. We had an actuarial liability loss in this case of 3.8 million. We had asset returns after smoothing of a $7.9 million gain. We had salary losses for 4.7 million. We had retiree COLA gains of 3 million. And then down at the very bottom, we had a small implementation gain that decreased in total our actuarial accrued, our UAAL to 234.9 million on an actuarial basis. So this is just a nice way to see over a longer period of time what types of changes have either contributed or lowered our UAAL.
And it's a 3-year smoothing?
For
the
Investment is a 5-year smoothing,
okay.
investment returns.
Yeah, yeah. There's different periods, based on what type of assumption change is made. Investment change is 5 years, but there are other layers that are 18.
So while we smooth the investment performance over 5 years for calculation of what we're recognizing and to calculate the funded ratio, the actual gains and losses, I believe, are actually included here on an 18-year amortization.
So handy little chart if you want to talk about the UAL. Any other questions on this slide? Final item here, page 106 and 107. And these are just the schedule of participating employers. Of course, trustees know we've only got 3 participating employers: the County of Mendocino, Mendocino Superior Courts, and RRCD, the Russian River Cemetery District. We've had 3 for a very long time, and so these final 2 pages just show the number of total active employees in the system by employer for each year. And of course, that's relevant because the number of active employees in total are the people that are contributing to the system. And so we're going to talk about that number and those populations in the future when we talk about Executive Director Rentschler's favorite subject, which is plan maturity and sustainability.
And actually, if you, when you have time, go on your own, look at page 6 of our PAFR. We actually have a graph that shows that active employee contributing and our retirees who are drawing benefit, and you can see how one has remained relatively stable and the other has been increasing. Just that we put that in a nice little graph form in our PAFR, which is our simplified financial report that we provide out to all employees. It just presents a summary and an easy to read. It's only like 12 pages instead of 120, so a little less daunting. Sorry.
Yeah, no, and thank you, Doris, and that's it. So I think the takeaway on at least that final slide is just that the active employees hasn't really changed over the last 10 years.
So when will we be tested on this?
Well, I have to move the test up to January now since you announced that's your last meeting, Richard.
Is there any discussion on this presentation? I did enjoy the presentation very much. Thank you for showing me page 41. That is a great way to look at it. And
That's your new favorite?
What's that?
That's your new favorite page?
It's my new favorite page that I had actually written down.
Okay.
I did appreciate it. So, and I also really like that number, that 0.57 number that you came up with, which is our total, load. Once we have that number completely, if you're going to add your own salary or portions of your own expense into that, I would be interested in seeing that number more frequently, maybe every year. Because if we're competitive in that range, I would like to know that. That does come up from time to time.
Yeah.
Or, how much
Yeah.
expenses are.
Yeah.
So it is a number that I'm interested in very much.
We are absolutely competitive. We're the second lowest in the recent years for, when you look at that for California county systems, we're on the lower side.
And that's something that, if we can qualify that and we feel confident in that, I would like to make that fact generally known.
I'm not sure I would brag too much about it, but we are one of the lowest in the state.
Then I would at least like to know it.
Well, and in part because we don't have a lot of alternative assets, private equity, private credit, and some of those other items, hedge funds, which typically do carry higher fees. Our portfolio structure has been relatively simple, and our total fees reflect that lack of complexity.
Yeah, I was going to actually ask specifically about how those particular investment vehicles would impact this number. I thought it might be in the other direction. You're saying it's actually
No, it
more
would
expensive.
definitely go up if we had private credit, private equity, hedge funds, things of that nature. Where those fees are often in excess of 1%. Right?
Well, yeah, and for our own plan in fiscal year 25, our infrastructure fees with the new accounting is still 140 basis points.
Right, just for that little portion, but on the plan as a whole,
Right.
our overall fees were only about 57 basis points.
Yeah.
Is there any other discussion?
In general, this is the cereals. This isn't CalPERS or CalSTRS. Do you have a notion of where we compare with those folks generally, not in a specific?
We can double check that on break when we look at the R22 numbers, but my guess is we're still lower. Part of the reason is because of our specific structure. We've got a large portion of two of our asset classes that are in extremely low cost funds, these index funds, right? The Vanguard S&P 500, $200-something million of our $850 million is in that particular fund. It's 2.5 basis points. That's the $33,000 a year we're estimating that expense costs us.
If you want, we could bring something maybe to the next meeting that covers sort of the serial systems and the historical period comparison and the CalPERS, just so you're not waiting on it today. If you want it today.
No, that's fine. That'd be great. So another question is, this, obviously with technical aspects and computers and all this in 2025, what did this report look like 20 years ago?
We can actually.
Are parts of it the same?
It looks very similar, and we actually do have copies going back into the mid to early 2000s. We might be able to look online. We don't have them all.
No, 09.
09.
I think we have back to 2009.
So not quite 20 years available for look at. We probably issued it before then in some format, but maybe didn't necessarily publish it as an ACFR or CAFR as it was called back then, and submit to the GFOA. But a lot of these sections of the report were similar even back in like the 98 to 2000. Publishing the comprehensive annual report, and it had the same 5 sections, investments, financial, actuarial, statistical, etc. And there's been some changes to a little bit of the schedules and the additional information included in the notes and the supplementary information, but the format itself has been very, very similar.
Thank you.
I would actually ask you for more information on your question even. What do you mean by that? Are you talking funding stuff?
I would say if I sat in this meeting in 1998, what was I looking at in regard to this kind of report?
Okay, so I would say look at page 90. Can we pull up page 90?
Oh, if she's connected to the share drive, we can pull up the one from
If you,
We can take this offline. I can do this in person.
well, I mean, it's good. At least it's good too for the public. Go to page 90 of this report. Now, this report is an actuarial report, so it does show funding for a very long period of time, back to 1998. But I guess the one of the things I'd point out is the valuation value of assets. So we know that there's been some changes in the last few years related to the contingency fund and how the plan's been doing. But that valuation value of assets column is close to the net position in any given year. Of course, it's not the net position because of the 5-year smoothing, but it's close to it. So if you wanted to look at the size of the plan back to 1998, this is an easy, quick way to do that without having to open up a bunch of different reports and kind of look at old history.
And to your comment about what you would have seen if you'd been looking at this report 20 years ago or something, I pulled up the 2008 report. This schedule is still in, this has been reported since at least 2002, because that data, that exact schedule is available in the 2008 report going all the way back to 2002. Now, that report back in 08 was only like 40 some odd pages long, and this one's now over 100. So there have been things that have been added to it, but the basic information that he reviewed today has been in the reports since, since the beginning, pretty much.
Right. Just to throw a last thing into that, because during that early era, we were also making these contributions to paying for health insurance with quote excess earnings, blah blah blah. And so to me, would be interesting.
I mean, I don't know what really you're asking for.
We'll check.
But certainly we can look at.
Well, I'll try to be specific in that. Was there a line item somewhere in there that everybody recognized that we're pulling money out of?
Yes.
The returns.
There was.
To give to back to the county to buy health insurance.
Yeah, there was. Yeah. Oh yeah.
That was certainly recorded as far as the plan's expense for retiree health insurance back when it was subsidized by the plan.
Yeah, and then the effect on unfunded liabilities, blah, blah, blah.
How that was displayed in the actuarial side as far as an impact to the gains and losses and the unfunded liability plan, I cannot comment on because I haven't looked for that specific attribute back then. And I'm not sure they broke it out in the level of detail of what was contributing, so I don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah. Thank you.
So I think as a final comment here, there's a few interesting items. Check out 02 to 03. Look at the asset valuation of assets, right? Wow. That was the POB, and you can see the funded ratio jumps up to 96%, right? So that's the POB that's been being paid off, and they're actually, it's almost paid off. So the county is very excited for that. But that's where it initially happened, right? And we got the $70-something million. Another sort of interesting item in my view is once you get down to 2010, you start to see covered payroll drop. It rises from 35 million to 70 million, and then 2010, 2012, extreme attrition at the plan sponsors, and we see that number drop down.
There was a 10% pay cut across the board.
And it took like a decade before it was back roughly to the same level of total payroll before the financial crisis and the trimming of the payroll by forcing pay cuts.
Almost exactly a decade here from 2009 to 2019. By 2019, the total plan still had lower payroll than it had a decade ago. So that was another period. And then I guess the final thing we can see is we know from 2014 through 23, the system has systematically sort of looked at the liabilities with Siegel through actuarial studies and tried to do a better job at tightening the assumptions. And we can see that from 2014 to basically 2021, that the funding ratio really didn't change. right? From 2013 to 23, it's basically the same place, but assets have grown and payroll has grown.
The reason the funded ratio didn't improve really over that decade was the actuarial assumption changes that increased our liabilities, reducing the assumed rate of return, and then also the move to a generational benefit weighted mortality had a significant liability cost, but it put us in a much stronger foundational period. If we hadn't made those changes, you would have seen faster progress in the funded ratio, but we wouldn't have been nearly as solid.
And then I guess the other thing I want to point out, just for trustees and the public's knowledge, this slide in our report here is extremely long. It goes back more than a decade, and that is, in my view, purposeful. I have kept this just trying to roll it along. This is actually the first year we cut off a year because it was getting too long on the page.
Yeah.
So we did cut off 1997, but in other reports, this is only 10 years long, which I think it's more interesting to see this longer term. You know, everybody can see really what's been going on. If you have a question about some part of it, you can go back and look at previous reports that are available publicly. People can email Doris and get additional information from her. So that's good. That's a good thing.
So, kind of because it's the last shot, I'll have this probably in my left, I think, is the verbals you've been giving to me are very interesting, and for maybe now that you have more time that you're not doing accounting and bookkeeping, you could correlate those periods you just mentioned with those explanations. I mean, I can personally tell stories about when the POB was being put together that are kind of nightmarish. And, you know, those times when we knocked everybody's pay and all those different things, it's
And
you know, people say, oh, you just haven't performed. Well, people don't understand some of the backstories of what happened to the system and the attempts to protect employees, protect the system, get rid of the bad auditors, get rid of the bad consultants, all those things.
One place where some of that is visible, Richard, is in the risk report, which we have a full risk report separate from our valuation done every third year. And the actuary breaks out the attributes contributing to the UAAL. And that chart over time, they label each one. Oh, here you can see this was due to the assumption change where we dropped the assumed rate of return from 775 to 725 or whatever.
Okay.
And so you can really see those impacts. They label exactly, oh, this was a loss due to higher salaries or a gain due to lower salaries or whatever it might have been. Very informational in that every third year risk report that helps explain that, and it ties it to specific events.
Yeah, and maybe that's something that gets in the popular report or something, because this is 108 pages. By the time you get to this one, your eyes are crossed.
The ACFR and the PAFR don't currently include that, but it is a piece of very interesting information, and it's a chart that I keep printed out in my office to use when I'm talking with people, just because of the wealth of information that gets summarized in that graph that the actuary puts in that standalone risk report. And we can look at maybe finding ways to incorporate that and tie it into a narrative of the financial discussion. So if there's any further questions before we move on to item 6? Oh, public comment, sorry. Do you want to ask for public comment?
There actually is no public comment.
Okay.
It's so interesting.
And that's wrong.
Oh,
I
okay.
was thinking, what a bunch
Or
of
Scott.
geeks.
Okay, that brings us to item number 6. First of all, what time is it? I think we're okay. Investment matters. Robert Ravelis, Retirement Financial Investment Officer.
So were you. You were the driver behind it.
Trustees, you have the monthly financial investment reports. They are also included, we've also included the quarterly real estate and infrastructure update memos. I think I don't have a whole lot of comments on the November and October report. You can look at those reports and you'll see there's not a lot of transactions happening. We rebalanced a fair amount in September. You know, I felt the time was right to do that. We've done very little work on rebalancing or pulling funds in October. We had 3 payrolls. We didn't need to pull any funds. You can see a small transaction, a reinvestment of $400-something thousand that we did. And then in November, we pulled $150,000. So relatively small transactions, not a lot going on. The fund is still doing pretty well. As of yesterday, total funds about $847 million. So we're kind of flat from November to today. There's been a little bit of a junk rally in the small cap space, which we'll get into in the quarterly update. But you can see some of those index performance numbers are even higher than the large cap, the S&P 500 through November. I also wanted to point out that in the real estate update, we've got the locations of the buildings. I'm curious just on commentary if that, trustees like to see that. That's something that we recently started doing to try to provide a little bit of context for where these buildings are located across the country. That's all my comments. Thank you.
I did notice on the November report that both Artisan and 91 were down. And they're obviously similar investment vehicles. Is there a reason why those are down?
It's obviously very holding specific.
Which is why I wonder what's going on. Is this a currency thing? Is it
There's definitely some currency thing going on with them, a little bit of that. They're underweight China, and then close to market weight in India. India's been having some issues lately. They got, they sort of rubber banded. They're reverting to the mean, right? They kind of rubber banded up where they were really hot for about a year, and now they've sort of just been bouncing back to the mean. So we can kind of dive in a little deeper on that during the quarterly. I do plan to bring Artisan back to the board sometime in the next year, just because they're a new manager. I want to get them back in front of the board to give an update, probably middle of next year. I'd like to have one solid year of performance from them. We invested in May, so I'm thinking June or July we'll have an actual update from the manager themselves.
Both the real estate and the infrastructure seem to have pretty good quarters. Would you agree on that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And
infrastructure has been a rock star for quite a while now. Infrastructure, we're going to get deeper into, how we should be considering the asset class with an example of a water company in England at the February offsite. So we'll go into detail on that so trustees can kind of learn about the process that we use to review that asset class. All right, is there any further discussion on item 6? Public comment? None? And that will bring us to item number 7, pensionable determination of resident deputy bonus pay plan. Doris Rinchler, Executive Director.
Thank you, Chair Land. Many years ago, I want to say roughly 2001, the county had created a resident deputy bonus pay for officers who reside in certain more rural outlying areas. This particular pay is at the discretion of the sheriff based on some other criterias, but the amount who receives it isn't necessarily granted to everyone. It's at the sheriff's discretion. It's not guaranteed every year. So it was includable under the Ventura decision back when the pay was created. With the PAFR changes that were implemented in January 1, 2013, it changed some of the definition of pensionable compensation for the new members, but also for compensation earnable for our existing members. So in discussions with council, we've realized that when we reviewed the pensionable pay list in 2012 for our new incoming PAFR members, that this pay was not caught. Pensionable compensation specifically excludes bonus paid as from inclusion in salary for calculation of benefits. The resolution for pensionable compensation removes this pay code from the pensionable list, and it's being made retroactive to 1/1 January 13, and we will refund contributions taken on that excluded pay because it is not permitted by law. This is very similar to the same way we handled the other pay types that were addressed in the Alameda decision. And we would have included this in those Alameda corrections if we had identified it at the time. Additionally, we are recommending that the pay type be made non-pensionable on a prospective basis for our legacy members based on the recommendation from council. So there are 2 resolutions today that we are asking you to adopt. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions. There really is no option on the pensionable status for our PEPRA members. But there is a little bit of flexibility on the inclusion of it for our legacy members under compensation earnable, but it is the recommendation of council to exclude it on a prospective basis for those tiers. This is not a particularly common pay code. Since 2013, a total of only 8 people have received it. 5 of those are legacy members. They would not be affected at all. The 3 people who are PEPRA members, there's only one that is a current employee who would have contributions refunded, one in deferred status who would have contributions refunded. The other has already taken a refund. So this is not an issue that would be impacting a significant number of individuals. We would really only be looking at making 2 corrections.
Okay, do we have any comments or discussion on these 2 resolutions?
I'll
Trustee Harris?
propose that we adopt staff recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion to adopt both resolutions. Is there any discussion? Public comment?
There is no public comment.
Then let's go ahead and take a roll call vote.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Cavanis?
Aye.
Mr. Haschak?
Aye.
Mr. Shoemaker?
Aye.
Ms. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Land?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, that will bring us to item number 8, Board Policy Review, Conflict of Interest. Doris Rentschler, Executive Director.
Thank you again, Chair Land. The conflict of interest policy is coming back to be updated due to Senate Bill 852 that was signed by the governor and goes into effect on January 1, 2026. This changes the requirements for filing Form 700 according to the Fair Political Practices Commission and regulates the definition of management of public investments. So the changes reclassify our consultant to go from Appendix B up to Appendix A. It also adds our investment managers to Appendix A and would make them subject to filing the Form 700 disclosure. If you have questions, I'm going to make Jeff answer them.
That's wise.
Callan has to do this.
And they had to previously. The only difference is because of the legislation, the filing, the person that you need to file with it is no longer the system, but the FPPC. So given the importance that they're putting on those who have managed public investments, we moved an investment consultant up there. And given the increased kind of scrutiny, the better decision seems to be to include investment managers as well. I will share with you that not every system is doing this the same way, but the investment managers inclusion is at the advice of our fiduciary council, and I don't disagree with it. And we'll tell the investment managers to do it, and there's some question of whether they'll comply, and we can't force them to, but we'll tell them to file, and then it's on them, just like when each of you have to file your Form 7.
There is one other important caveat I'd like to add as far as the changes to this policy because of the Senate bill. Trustees would be required to file directly with the FPPC, no longer with MSARA.
Thank you, yes.
That process is still being worked out. I did contact the FPPC and they said, we don't know, we're working on changing our system to allow this and identifying who has to file. It would be an online filing directly with the FPPC.
That's a positive development, and in my opinion. We no longer have to fill out that crazy piece of paper, print it, sign it, and send it. Just do something online. I'm assuming that they have an online, no, they don't. I can tell by you looking at me.
No,
They
do.
don't.
Yeah,
But right now,
yeah.
we're not
It
able
doesn't
to.
work well for multiple agencies.
You have to do what, separate one? for
They
multiple?
supposedly fixed it last year,
Okay.
Yeah.
after I complained.
So this is
Yeah,
an
that's
action
right.
item. It does require a motion to adopt the new plan as presented, or if there are any amendments or modifications by the board.
Well, I'll move to adopt the updated conflict of interest policy.
Second.
Thank you.
Discussion? And comments, public comments?
Wish it could be adopted at the federal level.
Oh.
That's a comment, okay.
Can we quote you?
I guess roll call then, please.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Cavanis?
Aye.
Mr. Haschak?
Aye.
Mr. Shoemaker?
Aye.
Ms. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Land?
Aye. All right, board policy review. Item number 8, board policy review. Board meeting remote attendance policy for trustees. Doris Rentschler, Executive Director.
Thank you, Chair Land. This policy is also being updated due to Senate bill recently enacted, Senate Bill 707, that is also going effective with January 1st, 2016. It restructures and modifies the definition for just cause and folds in the emergency exception as just part of that. And it added a new section for members who may have a disability and may need to attend remotely. It add some other provisions like extension of the social media rule for public officials and a couple of other items highlighted in the cover memo for you. One of those is that trustees need to be given a copy of the Brown Act. A copy of the Brown Act was attached to the board materials, so now you have all been given your copy of the Brown Act, and I have complied, Jeff. So if there are any questions regarding the changes in the policy, we'd be happy to address those at this time.
Now, I just took a workshop on Monday on the changes with AB 707, and I think that it's good that we're on top of it.
Thank you. Jeff's the one who kept us on top of it.
Okay, discussion? Thank you. Do we have a motion?
Discussion, is this the one where new board members have a year to comply, or am I remembering something else?
I believe this is effective January 1st as far as the changes to the rules that would permit remote attendance.
Okay.
I don't believe,
Yeah, okay.
but I would defer to
Not-
Jeff if there were any provisions that had a delayed implementation.
This applies to us starting the first of the year.
Yeah, then it's something else. It was a little late last night when I was reading this, so my apologies.
I'll move to adopt the updated remote attendance policy.
Second.
Discussion? Comments, public comments?
None?
None? All righty.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Cavaness?
Aye.
Mr. Hester?
Aye.
Mr. Shoemaker?
Aye.
Ms. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Land?
Aye.
Thanks.
Okay, this brings us to item number 10, direction regarding request to publish California's Second District Court of Appeals decision in Albert Mendoza versus Board of Retirement of the Ventura County Employees Retirement Association. Jeff Burke, Board Counsel.
Thank you. So in this item, we're looking for direction to have, actually the law firm that our fiduciary counsel is in is offered to put a letter together for the systems, so we're going to split the cost with them. And the purpose of this letter is to ask a court of appeal to publish its decision in this disability retirement case. Right now, it impacts the Ventura system only, but if it becomes published, it will apply, statewide. And it involved the question of a disability retirement applicant, a deputy sheriff who had a low back issue. And there is some new surgeries for lower back that are minimally invasive and quite effective. And for whatever reason, it appeared from the court decision that the deputy was just afraid to do it. But they had a 90% chance of success and the medical probability that they'd be able to go back to work. So the courts ruled against him and denied the application. The legal principle is a duty to mitigate. So applicants for disability retirement have a little bit of a responsibility on their part to do what is medically reasonable under the circumstances. And so there hasn't been any published court decisions on this issue in decades. So it would be helpful for the systems. I mean, I think we all kind of thought this, and now there's so many advancements, medically, with hip replacements and knee replacements. There's a goalie I play with at the rink who had both his knees replaced, and within a year he's back out on the ice. So anyway, so we encourage you to join this, and the cost will be, I would imagine, significantly less than $1,000, but at least less than $1,000. Several firms will be joining on with this letter. And any questions, I'm happy to answer.
So how much likelihood is this letter going to create the publish effect?
So I think that there is some significance because there's a legal test for when the courts should publish it, and if they see that that it could be impactful, then it increases our chances.
So you have to mitigate. What was the term you used?
Mitigation, no, it's called avoidable consequences doctrine, or the duty to mitigate.
Yeah, so this person might have been afraid that the operation would paralyze them or something.
Right.
So what if it did? Because you were told you had to do that to get a retirement.
Well, I mean, I'm not a doctor, but the doctors say, that you have a 90+.
No, I'm talking legal, not a doctor.
Yeah.
Doctor tells you 90% work, 10% you could be paralyzed.
So what is your
But the question is, what liability is created by the requirement to have an operation done to get a disability?
Liability for the system, there's no liability. It's still voluntary. If you want the disability retirement lifetime benefit, you can take the risk, and if you don't,
Okay,
you don't. But there's no liability risk.
interesting.
Yes. I think that having this published would just serve to give us more flexibility in making determinations in the unlikely, circumstance that we have, that we would have a disability applicant that was in this situation. It's possible. It seems like there's no downside to having this as one of the ways that we can evaluate.
So do you need a motion on this?
No, just
direction.
If you want to give a thumbs up.
Go for it.
Thank you.
Yep. Although I do understand what Trustee Shoemaker is saying there about this could be a bigger issue than what we're seeing here. In my opinion.
Yeah, up to this point, doing things
Yeah.
like carpal tunnel that don't work and so forth seems nominal.
Yeah.
But something like that was like, wow.
But at the end of the day, as fiduciaries, it's in our best interest to have that as a tool.
I
So
understand.
I
My
can't
thumbs
describe it exactly, and it's sure it's gonna be case by case, but this procedure actually is a 1 centimeter incision. I mean, it is so tiny and microscopic. I think that the risks are incredibly small, but I wouldn't say they're zero.
To me, it's the legal theory
Right,
that you have to lay down and be poked to get your thing. You're already hurt, and there's an opportunity to be hurt more. And you know,
But
blah blah blah. But it's
Okay.
good. We're on.
we gave a thumbs up on that, so we'll move
Alright.
on. And I have got a bad break in my
11 for the service provider.
service provider evaluations. Item number 11, Doris Frenchler, Executive Director.
Thank you, Chair Land. So this service provider evaluation report goes over 3 of the board reserve service providers, our financial auditor for our financial statements, the Brown Armstrong accountants, Callan, our investment consultant, and Siegel, our consulting actuary. For Brown Armstrong, MSERA first contracted with Brown in 2017, and the contract was extended during the correction project in 2020 and again in 2023 for 3-year terms. Since the full board doesn't interact with our financial auditor, the request to evaluate Brown was only sent to the audit committee members and to staff. We received a total of 3 evaluations. Brown has met or exceeded expectations in every category. Staff commented that Brown is easy to work with, that the audit runs smoothly and is completed on time. We do know that Brown's hourly rates are rather competitive. They also had submitted a proposal when we were searching for an agreed upon procedures auditor, and because we know the rates are competitive from that RFP, board does not feel that it's necessary to RFP for a financial auditor, and we are recommending executing a new 3-year contract with Brown Armstrong. Callan first contracted with MSERA in 2009, and we had contract extensions in 2012, 2014, 2016, and an RFP was issued in 2018 where Callan was reselected as the board's investment consultant, and that contract was extended through June 30, 2023. That contract was then extended for an additional 3 years.
January 6th.
So the evaluation of Callan also was that they met and exceed standards. Callan has comments that staff found them to be highly qualified. They appreciate Callan bringing in specialized staff, and that they are helpful and responsive to questions from the board and from staff. 7 years have passed since the last RFP was done, although staff is recommending just executing a new 3-year contract with Callan. MSERA first contracted with Siegel in 2011 after Siegel performed MSERA's first actuarial audit. We received evaluations from 8 trustees and staff. There was 1 rating of a needs improvement relating to projecting budgets for special work that they provide for us. All other ratings were met or exceed standards. Comments included that sometimes their invoices aren't timely, which can be an issue around the end of the fiscal year, but that they have adequate staff and that we're not really concerned with the retirement of Mr. Angelo and Mr. Young because of the depth of bench and the staff assigned to our account. However, with the length of time that it's been since we've reviewed this, in this instance, it's been 14 years since the last RFP was issued, and staff's recommendation is to issue an RFP for consulting actuarial services. So this item is for direction from board to provide us your preferences regarding the issuance of RFP for any or all of those vendors.
Okay, that'll bring us into some discussion on this. Does anybody have any comments they would like to make about to RFP or not to RFP on these three vendors?
Well, my feeling is that RFP is a good tool to just make sure we're getting the product that we really need, services. So I lean towards doing RFPs on them.
Yeah, I do as well.
I have, these three vendors have been here since I joined the board. I have no other experience with other service providers in this domain. I've liked Siegel. I have no issues with Callan, and I don't know much about Brown Armstrong to have a significant opinion. I think that we. I know there's been some discussion in the past about Callan, a potential conflict. I don't really give that a lot of weight, but I think that an RFP is probably the right way to go. I wish all three of these were not at the same time, and that we could stagger perhaps the terms. I don't know if that's better for you. It sure would be better, I think, for if I were in your shoes.
Over the years, they've worked at aligning the contracts to end at June 30. It just so happened that with some extensions here, they all ended June 30 of this year.
Yeah.
So we are looking to, if we issue an RFP, doing it in the early spring time and having vendors, firms selected to be effective with July 1.
I have a question about cost. What would be like an approximate idea of how much it would cost? It would be different for each.
The cost for the services provided, or the cost to run the RFP?
The RFP.
Mostly it's staff time. We would put together and post it in some industry sites and then also to our site and the county's site. So it's primarily the staff time required. We would be looking at getting an ad hoc committee to go through the review of the proposals and perhaps select either finalists for interviews or make a recommendation of the committee to the full board for a selection of the vendor, because staff's going to need some input there. So whether it's one ad hoc committee for all three RFPs, or whether you want to create separate committees to review those, if we're looking at doing three RFPs before springtime, essentially, we need to kind of start that process here shortly. We do have examples from other systems as far as recent RFPs that we can review to look for some best practices, make sure we're not omitting anything, but there is a time constraint here.
How about, since Brown Armstrong seems strong and no problems, and we don't have that much contact with them, why don't we do and the timing situation, what if we did a RFP on Callan and Siegel? Kept it to 2 this year.
And then you recommend that you roll Brown Armstrong? The recommendation is to roll to a new 3-year contract?
Extend the contract on
Extend
Brown,
Brown
but
Armstrong.
issue RFPs for Callan and Siegel. Is that the direction from the board?
That's a proposed direction here. If we have a consensus to move forward with that? I think that's reasonable.
Can you do it for them 2 or 4 years to break it apart from?
Yes, we can look at doing a contract other than a standard 3, so we can get them on alternates. Some jurisdictions do the initial contract for a 5-year rather than a 3-year term, and then just do a 1+1 on your extension options as opposed to doing 3-year extensions. It's really the board's preference on that, but we can certainly align these so they don't all fall due always on the same 3rd-year cycle.
That's good.
Yes.
I would also mention to the board, just so you're aware, we're going to have our custodial contract also ending middle of next year. Yeah. Well, so the contract ends in November 26. So there's going to be another discussion related to, do we want to RFP, evaluate the service provider, just so you're aware.
Towards
so
the
there's
fall, yeah.
Towards the fall. So potentially there would be another RFP just to be aware of.
Okay, is there any further discussion, any other comments or suggestions? I guess that since I'm hearing crickets,
Okay,
the
so
direction
just
will
to
be.
reiterate, the recommendation from the board, or the direction from the board, is to extend the contract with Brown Armstrong for an additional 3-year term, to issue an RFP for investment consultant services, and to issue an RFP for consulting actuarial services, and that we should set up the terms of those contracts so they do not all expire in the same year.
Can you do that?
Does the board have any preference between a 3 or a 5 or a 4 or 2 as far as the duration of the initial contract?
Can we fire somebody mid-contract?
You can, with 30 days' notice, you can get rid of all of them.
5 years sounds reasonable. I mean, you know.
Okay, we'll
I'll
bring
leave
a
that to
sample
your-
back. I also would like establishment of the committee, or do you want to do that at a future meeting? Maybe do that in February or March, because by then, hopefully, we'll have our new safety member and maybe a replacement for anybody else who may be
I would like to put
transitioning.
all of the retiring board members onto the committee.
We just meet before brag, it'll be fine.
Committee meetings can be done by Zoom, I believe.
I must say that reviewing RFPs can be a significant time. And I mean, how many would you usually you'd have? I assume at least 1 or 2 board members of staff. Do you traditionally bring in other county resources for reviewing?
Not
We do that.
typically. We generally have used, let's say, 2 trustees and then 1 or 2 staff.
Boy, I hate to volunteer for it, but I really also would hate to impose that on another trustee, so I will volunteer to be one of the RFP review
Why don't we
people. And
revisit this in March with a formation of the committee then?
sure,
Okay.
yeah. I guess we don't have to do that now. Is there any
Does the
other?
board want to see the RFPs before they go out? Or we can send them to the committee once the committee's established, certainly. Never mind, I'll deal with that with the committee.
So with the Brown quote extension, why don't you manipulate that to help? Because I think if you do 5 years on the contracts with the first 2 guys, or the new people, or the same people, I don't know, I'm just trying to figure out how to easily get that stagger put in place.
We could do an extension for Brown for maybe an even number of years, 2 years or something, and then we can do one of the RFPs with an initial 3-year term and a 5-year term perhaps for the other, or something to try to break it up a little bit. But we'll look at that and try to ensure that 4 of our primary service providers don't come due in the same year in the future.
Great.
All right,
Okay,
thank you.
all right, I believe that brings us to item number 12, or have I lost count? Risk assessment and agreed upon procedure update. Doris Rentschler, Executive Director.
Thank you, Chairland. This is just a brief update on the strategic and operational risk report originally presented back in, I believe, March of '24. This was the output of our entity-wide risk assessment, and this is the board's first update on that. While not entirely inclusive of all of the action staff has taken, there are some notable items where we have reduced the risk associated with some of the primary, the top 10 risks identified in that risk assessment. They include minimizing the use of manual spreadsheets by reviewing the programming and pension gold for service purchase contracts, and we're wrapping up a little bit of items there, but we have essentially foregone doing manual calculations for service purchases. We'll continue to look at other areas where we have manual worksheets to see where we can minimize the use of manual processes. Succession planning was a concern of the board back when this was put together. We have, subsequent to that, the board adopted a succession plan policy addressing key or critical positions within MCERA, since we're such a small organization. So we do have that noted as now being implemented and largely complete. That continues to get tweaked a little bit as things evolve with staffing. We have made some plans for addressing board concerns regarding unfunded liability, primarily the educational offsite that's coming up in February, where we're going to be focusing on maturity, my favorite word, and sustainability, in reviewing our cash flow needs and portfolio management options. So that just shows the board's involvement in this issue, and that it's not languishing, but it does actually hold your attention, and that you are taking action to and make informed decisions and follow best practices. We are pleased to announce that with the addition of the retirement accountant, we are reviewing and have changed the segregation of duties to allow better division of and oversight of different functions to improve preventative and detective controls on our processes involving on the financial side. With regulatory compliance, of course, not only did we finish and have the voluntary correction application with IRS come to a successful conclusion, we also implemented the agreed upon procedures internal audit activity for MCERA to ensure that our internal processes follow the laws, our policies, and our best practices. We did receive our first UAP report that had no findings, indicating that the review of our service retirement processes and the refund processes are good and being followed in our processing of benefits. On the financial markets side, we do regular asset liability studies, and we have a well-diversified asset allocation that the board adopts, and we do that periodic review of our structural asset for each section of the portfolio. The board had made changes in the past to the domestic equity structure a couple of years ago. More recently, of course, the international equity structure and the real estate structure. So the board has been actively engaged there in ensuring that the portfolio structure is reviewed and is maintained in a way that helps ensure our diversification and hopefully will allow us to minimize downturns and seek good returns in the markets. So that tied into the investment manager selection, because the board had been very active in that realm when this past year with the international equities and the real estate sections of the portfolio. On recruitment and retention, we did manage to fill, of course, the last of the retirement specialists. Both specialists position one's been filled for over a year, the other is coming up to his 1-year anniversary, and we've added and filled the retirement accountant. I think some of that also ties into the fact that the board was able to agree with the county and the labor group on a serial-specific set of comparator agencies for market studies for our staff. And all of those actions are reflected as an improvement in the recruitment and retention aspect that was noted on the original March of 2024 report. So this is informational, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions you have at this time.
Questions? Seeing none, let's move on to item number 13. Administrative report, Doris Rentschler, Executive Director.
Just a reminder that your Form 700 filing, it will be coming up by March 31st, 2026, and that you will need to be filing with the FPPC. Trustees who leave the board also are required to file leaving the board disclosure statement. It's also time to submit your payment for the waiver of recourse premium. Of course, that insurance premium is what protects you in the event that MSERA is sued and our insurance settles, from having our insurance company go back against any of our trustees to try to recoup anything that they pay out. We do highly recommend that. And if you have a question, Trustee Swope?
Yes, I think last year there was a question of acceptability of payments. Now, is it always with check for this purpose, or is it cash?
Check is preferred, but Judy will accept cash if need be. We don't have the capacity to do card payments.
Yeah, well, I was wondering between check and cash.
Yeah, check is definitely preferred, but we have dealt with cash when necessary. We are asking that trustees submit their waiver of recourse premium by January meeting or shortly thereafter.
The premiums have already been paid by MSERA, so you're basically paying MSERA back, and then we have the proof that you've paid your premium. I don't have change, so
Yeah.
if you're paying in cash,
Well, it's $10 this time, so there should be less change required, potentially. Not like when it was $9, but our office will follow the county as far as being closed to the public over the Christmas holiday. We will actually be closing on Wednesday, December 24th. I believe that actually might be a Thursday. All the way through January 2nd, the day after the New Year. So we will be back in the office on Monday, January 5th. Staff will be working during that time, but we are closed to the public. We have very little traffic during that time frame anyway. Update on the safety election. The special election was being held. The deadline for nomination was December 5th. We received no candidates. That deadline was extended to the 19th. I have had a conversation with one and did receive a message from another individual who indicated they may be willing to serve. I am waiting to see, but they are both aware of the deadline of the 19th. Oh, and please join me in congratulating Robert on obtaining the Charter Financial Analyst Institute's Certificate Investment Performance Measurement designation. That 2-exam CIPM mark is a distinction covering advanced portfolio evaluation, manager search, and selection skills, and provides a deep understanding of performance results, risk analysis, and reporting. So congratulations to Robert.
yay!
Yes, you had a question?
What are the continuing education requirements, if any, on that?
15 hours a year.
Wow.
So, yeah. Lot to learn, though.
Did you get a certificate?
He did.
All right.
That did conclude my comments.
You got a frame, it's on your wall.
It's at the framing shop. It will go on the wall.
All right. Awesome.
Getting there.
That is the end of, let's see, that was, we go to number 14, I believe, right?
Yep.
SACRS Fall Conference Attendance Report. Doris Rentschler, Executive Director. We have a printout.
Thank you, Chair Land. We are providing time for each of the attendees who went to the SACRS Fall Conference to give a brief report on their attendance. It looks like I'm first on that list. So I found SACRS to be very beneficial, especially the disability retirement pre-session on the post-COVID complications and disability retirement applications. That session was led by an MD, so we really got a medical perspective of it that was very nice, and then they folded it into the whole application process. The administrator's breakout session was useful in giving me a heads up on some of the issues other systems are facing that I don't want to mention because I don't want to encourage any of it here. No, but there were quite a few good items within this conference, and I found that the educational sessions and also, more importantly, almost the networking opportunities to meet with other serial plan administrators, staff, and trustees is really of a benefit, and I would recommend continued attendance.
I believe that goes to the next member, B. That would be me. I wanted to comment on the facility, which was fantastic, and the location, which was also fantastic. Really enjoyed it. An amazing facility, the Hyatt there in Huntington Beach. I also did get a lot out of the long COVID presentation for disability retirement. I don't think that we've had any of those come up, at least not in my tenure, but bigger plans certainly get a lot more of that sort of thing. The keynote general session with Eric Kurilla, I believe is how he pronounced his name, was amazing. Probably the most powerful guy that I've ever, most senior positioned person I've ever actually seen speak live. Very interesting. I think we commented on it. I thought he was running for Secretary of Defense, but he didn't say that. That would be my interpretation of what he's doing. And the other thing I wanted to comment on was the demonstration on the use of RPA, which could be easily confused with AI. It's robotic process automation, and that's the use of a product called UiPath. I do not see that as a fit for this organization. We just don't have the volume for this, but in part of my other job, I would see that as a potential tool that we could bring in. What they were using this for was it basically can record your mouse clicks, and if you do things repetitively, you drop everything in the same folder, and you can teach it to simulate very, very quickly, what a human has been doing. So you don't need you don't have to learn how to program a computer. It's not AI, it's just doing the exact same thing over and over and over again. We used to use some similar technologies 20 years ago. But they've really matured it, and it was a neat presentation, and that's all I had.
Well, I'm glad that Alex went to the robotic process automation workshop, same one I did, because he understood what they were talking about. So, it was a good conference. I attended the ethics training. It's always good to get an update on the latest limits and hear those cautionary tales of what not to do. The general was very impressive, talking about, what's going on in the Middle East and how it affects markets. And, they didn't allow for questions. So, that was probably a good move on their part. And then this Christina Hooper, who was the chief market strategist for the Mann Group. Her message was that the U.S. is heading for a recession in the next year. And there is a brain drain away from the United States, that people aren't coming here for advanced degrees because of the political climate and uncertainty. So I thought that was a powerful message. There was a investing in community workshop, and also the role of AI in modern medicine. So that's interesting to hear where things are going in that regard. It's such a big field, and there's so much possibility. Certainly at the previous conference in the SACRS, the calipers, there was one too, that those investments, what do they call them? The people who are investing big money into these
Venture
projects.
capital?
Venture capitalists, right. And they were talking about it too, but to hear it again, it's interesting to hear what's going on and how things are changing. And then finally, it's a lot of networking. I met a lot of people, and to hear what they're doing with their pension systems, and you know, we can compare ours. We can look for best practices, and just talking to these people who are in the world of finance, it's quite interesting. That's my report.
All right, I think I'm next. I'd first like to say I'm glad that so many folks from our system attended, because the last time I think we had nobody. And I do think that they're really helpful and good for the networking and other things, so I want to encourage the attendance. So the attorneys have a breakout session. We meet actually for like 3.5 hours, and there are some scheduled presentations and then a roundtable. 3 items to report to you on. One is AI. And that's kind of been an ongoing discussion both at the Calipers Attorney Roundtable and at SACRS. And the County of Mendocino has just adopted an AI policy. Several of the retirement systems have, some are in the works. And our plan is to bring you a policy next year. And there's definitely some internal groundwork that we need to do. And so we'll do that first. And then I think the plan is to bring you an informational item on AI where some of the discretionary decisions are, and then you can kind of help us frame how you'd like the policy to look. I'm not a technological person myself, and there's obviously a lot of benefits to this, whether it's in the investment world or disabilities or staff reports. There's also a lot of risks. And so there have been stories about attorneys who use AI, cite a case to the court, the case doesn't even exist, and the attorney is sanctioned by the judge. So there's bad information. We want to protect our members' data. We want to be consistent with our fiduciary obligations. So we got to stir all that up and figure out where it lands. Another topic was negotiating investment agreements, and the board just has 2 new managers coming on. One is Kane Anderson, and the other is LaSalle. And we had an earlier discussion today about how our investments aren't really that sophisticated. I mean, they're kind of very basic commingled funds, which keeps the fees down. And I do think the risks when we enter into these agreements or these side letter agreements, because they're general partnerships, I think the risks to the system really are very small. But there's so many millions of dollars that are being invested. There are attorneys for law firms like the firm that we contract with for fiduciary counsel, and the attorneys do nothing but negotiate investment contracts 24/7. So they have developed a lot of expertise. And now I think for the first time since I've been here, and I'm glad we're doing it, we're having an attorney from the Nossaman firm give us some counsel on negotiating one of the agreements. So that's another thing. And then the last is disability retirement. We had a presentation on the new presumptions. Many of them went into effect in 2024. PTSD is kind of at the top of the list, but there are several others, including low back, meningitis, Lyme's disease, tuberculosis, and a couple others. So anyway, that's my report.
So I guess my takeaway really is that the SACRS events are a great place to have discussions with everybody else in the whole pension world ecosystem. So that could be other investment staff or accounting staff that I'll see there, getting a chance to talk with other trustees, and getting a chance to talk with other investment managers about what they're seeing in the market. Basically, I ask kind of the same thing from all those groups of people. You know, what are you seeing? What are your challenges that you're facing? And what are you interested in as a group or as a fund? So, you know, to me, that's really the big value when I go to an event like that. Specifically, you know, I was able to make a few new contacts at San Bernardino, Contra Costa, And of course, I got a chance to follow up with some of our actual managers, a new manager. There was a Sal person there, so it kind of just gives another place to talk with people face to face about what they're doing and what they're seeing. There was an CIO breakout where only CIOs from all the systems go and get a chance to discuss some of their both frustrations, but also some of their projects. And one of the things that I asked about really in that session was trying to get a sense for how the other systems are dealing with trustee education, trustee orientation. We've got the new trustee orientation program we've just formalized. We're going to have some turnover upcoming. So I wanted to get a sense for how other systems are dealing with both education planning, and what sort of support they provide to their trustees in terms of maybe board prep and education planning. So I thought the general was amazing. I was questioning what I'm doing with my life, kind of jokingly. It's like, wow, this guy is, giving direction to the president about, military actions and using force on other places and people. And I thought, wow, man, I just sit in an office and crunch numbers, So it was just interesting to hear him talk about his leadership approach, and that he likes to revisit, and he likes to have his team know that decisions can be revisited. So I was taking some of those examples, and I'm going to apply them here with our new retirement account.
You mentioned new contacts. And about what level? Trustee or investment officer? Or?
All of the above. All of the above. So there's a few trustees from other systems that I've seen, and we have interesting conversations all about just, what is your plan doing? What are you really interested in? And also other senior investment staff, whether that's CIOs at the other systems or whether that's some of the deputy director folks.
Did you see Stan?
Stan was not there. Yeah.
So I want to say that when you sit in your little office, there's like 3,400 other people in that office with you.
I know.
Okay.
It's incredibly important. All of us are very important, and there's a lot of people that are relying on us making good decisions and following our process. So I appreciate that. But, I did think, man, this guy,
Thank
wow.
goodness somebody does that. Not me,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Jeff did mention attending future SACRS. I will let the board right now know that I will be attending the May SACRS because I volunteered to chair the administrators breakout session. So I definitely have to go.
Good.
Is there any other comments on the SACRS fall conference?
Thank you for doing those reports.
Yeah, I think we're going to be including something like that on a quasi-regular basis on the go forward for major conferences that staff attends, trustees attend.
Yeah, very valuable to all of us.
Okay, that's going to bring us to general board discussion. And I did want to continue a little bit of the SACRS in general board discussion. Why not? And I did want to say that I am likely to attend the spring event this year as well. Can't 100% commit to that. I do encourage others to attend, knowing that it is difficult. It is in Tahoe this time, at the Olympic Valley.
Nice.
Yeah, and I've been to 4 or 5 different conferences there over the years. It is very nice. I went to and I'm not doing the IT information technology conference, which is frequently held there as well in the spring. So I'm not doing that one this year. So I would like to go to that one. The phenomena of AI hallucinations is what, and the very case of the fake case that was used in a judge is something that isn't just talked about in lawyer circles. It's an example in IT circles. We do have policy on AI now at the county, and we are beginning the process of evaluating which types of AI systems, generative AI systems, that we would be approving. And we're coming up with the process of saying, yes, this one's okay and this one's not. One thing that you do need to make sure you do is if you do use generative AI, you do need to disclose that you have done so.
I have a question on that.
Yeah.
Like, let's say you have generated a document, and then would you put somewhere on the document that this document has been assisted or has been?
Yes.
Where would you put that on a document?
Maybe we need a stamp. I have done this exactly one time, and at the top of the page it says.
Okay, I would have put it.
That might not be a nice answer.
I put it right up by my name and the document type and the date.
Yeah.
Assistance from ChatGPT or assistance from Copilot.
And the case law.
Yeah.
And it is important, of course, if you do utilize these tools, that you review the output and ensure that data is correct
Right.
before you share it.
Because they do make mistakes.
Yeah, they do make mistakes, and they make ridiculously embarrassing mistakes at times. But it can be extremely helpful. Just yesterday, I took a document that I had created for a presentation that was a proposal, and they said, I turned it into slides, PowerPoint style slides, which I hate writing slides. But it did create slides, and they were reasonable. I had to go and check, and I make small changes to every single one of them. But it's an example of the type of outputs that you can get. Yeah.
Could you give us a Reader's Digest overview of the county policy on AI?
It's a resolution, right?
It's a policy. I'm trying to think of how I would express that. You have to disclose it. You have to use authorized sources. You can't. We discourage people from using their own accounts. We understand that shadow AI is something that can happen. You can't really get away from it. If you do a Google search, there's a button right there that says, "Do you use Gemini? Do you want this in AI mode?" We can't really stop that. We can't stop somebody from picking up their phone and asking a question. And we're aware of that. Use approved county, and this would not apply to you except for in business that you're doing here, and that until we have a separate policy here for the trustees, I don't know what I would even say.
I would expect that our policy will follow many of the requirements within the county's policy, but we might further expand on it. One item in the county policy, of course, was restriction of the use of non-public data in any model, certainly any open model.
Yeah, we don't put any kind of PII data or HIPAA-based data, anything that you would not generally want models to be training on. There might be exceptions to that in some of the enclosed systems that we might have access to. Copilot would be one of those where there are restrictions against them sharing it. For the time being, I wouldn't put anything that's controversial in there like that. So, and these are kind of obvious. You wouldn't post the stuff you wouldn't post on the internet. I mean, we assume that if you train it on data, that you have now exposed that data to everybody. So, and I didn't come here prepared to do a computer AI.
No, but I mean, I was
but I
curious
will.
about the salient points.
Yeah. There's more to it. We've gone back and forth. But it's not really a long policy. Evolving, we will definitely be amending it as we go on, and there will be accompanying lists of approved and prohibited AI tools.
It's actually very short, 6 pages, and 2 pages are just definitions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitions.
And I was told right after we approved it that it was already out of date.
Who told you that?
Oh, some people yeah, so it needs to be like, probably updated every 6 months.
Yeah, yeah. All right, we are on 15, general board discussions, and are there any other general board discussions?
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays?
Yeah.
All right. That wraps up 2025. I almost forgot what year it was. So that will bring us to item number 16, adjournment and notice of next Board of Retirement meeting. The next Board of Retirement meeting will be held in the Mendocino County Employees Retirement Association Boardroom, 625B Kings Court, Ukiah, California, on Wednesday, January 21st at 8:30 a.m.
You be home this
Thank you. Adjourned. We are adjourned.
I'll be in
And that went quick.
transit sometime.
10:30?
Why don't you just-
Yeah, 2 hours.